Sherry, during one of our meetings this week of our Echoes of Recovery think tank, we talked about facial expressions. Now, you and I didn't bring this up. Somebody else in the group brought it up, and he was talking about a specific expression that he makes that like shuts down the conversation with his wife. His wife is like, "I'm out." And the way he explained it, he said, I have traditionally, there have been times where I have said things that sound dismissive or rude or not emotionally safe or whatever. And the words coming out of my mouth would shut down the conversation. But this was kind of a new epiphany for him that he could make facial expressions that shut down the conversation. And I thought it was so interesting because I thought about that in relation to our relationship. And I view the facial expressions I get from you in a very opposite way. I find them useful. But before we talk about my experience, let's talk about your experience, because I know there is a particular facial expression that I make that you are not particularly fond of.
Yes.
Can you describe the origin and then maybe make that face for our viewing audience?
Well, I like to call it "what the hell."
That's the name of the
what
face?
the hell look. Because your nose scrunches up and your eyes kind of like get centered to look at the bridge of your nose, and your mouth's kind of agape, like, what the hell? Like you're just questioning like somebody's move or somebody's comment. So I think that you, honestly, you inherited it from your dad, because he is the king of what the hell look.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you do that. And I'm like, oh God. And our kids all know it.
Yeah.
You've gotten very good about not doing that over the last few years.
Well, you've gotten very good at calling me on it.
Yeah. And because we feel more secure about calling you on it. And, but the kids will like they'll look at me. Yeah, he's got the look, like we all know, like everybody knows. And then we can say, yeah.
Yeah. I can't speak for my father, but I feel like it comes from like whatever it is we're doing, wherever we're going, whatever we're talking about, I've got it in my head anyway. Maybe not out loud. Maybe I'm the only one with it, but I've got it like planned out, or like I know what should happen. And then somebody says or does something that throws it off course. And I'm like, hey, that's not in the program.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where, like, does that do a good job of representing times when you would see the what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so squinty eye, do it again for yeah. So if you haven't
scrunch nose,
if you're a podcast listener and you haven't watched a podcast on YouTube yet, you might want to check out the Intoxicated.
Maybe this will be the thumbnail.
Or maybe you don't want to, because we're making ugly faces.
Sure, it is always going to be the thumbnail.
Okay, so when I know about you and the what the hell, and I heard the gentleman in Echoes talk about his experience with his partner and her hatred of his facial expression, the thing that popped into my mind is, I love your facial expressions, especially now that I'm sober and I'm long-term recovery, and I have what I would think, this might sound arrogant or braggadocious, but I think I have a lot more awareness about the things going on around me than I used to back when I was a drinker. Mm-hmm. Would you endorse that?
I endorse that.
So your facial expressions are so helpful, because when I see certain ones, I'm like, oh, I need to change course without even words coming out of your mouth.
Yeah. And I think that I've gotten a lot better with not giving the eye roll. Well, I was a huge eye roller.
I don't know.
As a little kid and a teenager and young adult. And I think I still do a lot of eye rolling. You're but usually I like turn my back and I try to like look away.
Can you give us the eye roll? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there it is. It's subtle. If you're not paying attention, you're going to miss it, which is probably why during my active addiction days, I just kept plowing on through whatever I was saying, because I would miss it. Mm-hmm. I think that's your most common. You've got, like, sometimes when you're annoyed or you disagree, but you just don't want to get into it. That's when I get the eye roll the most. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Or I'm saying something so outlandish, you're like, why are you wasting your time and mine?
Again, if you are just a podcast listener, but you've never viewed our YouTube channel, if you remember hearing something ridiculous that I called Matt on, go to that and watch the video, because I'm sure you have my facial expression in there, not just an eye roll. Because I know you say I have this face.
I think,
and you asked me to make the face.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't. You haven't said anything annoying yet.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what do you
but
think
I
the
think that
chances are that we make it through the
I'm
podcast?
sure there's going to be, sure there's going to be one of the looks. And I bet I bet Dr. Laura will like know what's going on.
Laura, let's see if you notice the eye roll when it comes about. What do you think about facial expressions? And listen, you can tap into your practice as a therapist or your own marriage. I don't care. Go with whatever. Like, do facial expressions play a role in your daily life?
Well, what
Relationship
comes to
wise?
mind as you guys are talking about this is, I mean, emotions are contagious. And when a couple's talking to each other and one partner makes a face, sometimes they don't even realize they're making it. But then it has this knock-on effect, right? And now everybody's reacting over a facial expression, nothing's been said. I remember I have one couple where the husband eye rolls, um, and the wife hates it, and he can't stop. He's like, I don't even know when I'm doing it. Like he just really, he's like, how am I supposed to control my face? And it is a dilemma, isn't it? Because
It
it's
is.
pretty reactive. It's, what can you do? But it does have a big effect.
I know. Well, there was
Yeah.
another gal at Echoes, and she and I used to like trade memes back and forth about my mouth is shut, but my face is doing all the talking, like those kind of things. It's so like involuntary. So
Yeah.
sit like
I
I mean, I've sometimes had to like clench my fist to like
Like this.
get through a conversation that I'm hearing, like that it's kind of like when you want to jump in and interrupt somebody, but you're like, you can't. I like feel like I have to do that. Like I can't let my face interrupt.
I feel like that was a little passive aggressive jab right there. Me when I want to jump in, but I can't.
No,
Oh,
I meant
sure.
like you as in like general, like another person.
Yeah. Oh, that was
Yeah, like
the
the you,
royal
the,
you, or however they
I don't
say
know,
that.
the world, like the whole, the you general kind of like
Oh,
how the other person wants to jump in and interrupt. But I feel
I,
like my face interrupts a lot. But I feel like now in our relationship, you might look at it a little, and maybe it's because that's wishful thinking on my part, but I feel like it's a temperature gauge.
oh,
Like
for
if you
sure.
see that my face is starting to like, well, you're going there, and like you can realize like, maybe I am a little,
Oh,
maybe I am like talking out of my ass, or maybe,
I
and
just thought of a way to. You do a transition eye roll, like when I'm trying to get your attention. We're making a bid for attention, Laura,
Mhm.
and like you're at your computer, and I'm trying to get you to listen to something I have to say. You make this big like transition eye roll from the computer screen up to me, and I'm like, oh, this disruption is not welcome right now. Although now you're doing, sorry, pen's in your
you're
face.
a little,
Now you're doing my favorite, your squinty eyed smile.
Mhm.
I know you don't like it when I squint, but when you squint, it is a sign that you've let down your guard and you're feeling comfortable and you're just rolling with the emotion. So
Yeah.
that squinty eyed laugh is my favorite.
Thanks.
While we're on this topic, in the car last night, we were talking about something stressful. Laura, what do you think about this?
Oh.
I think this is just a televised and audiophied therapy session for us. This is nothing else beyond that. But when we were in the car, we were talking about something stressful, and I suggested we do something different, and you gave me that sigh. When I am high self confidence, when I feel good about myself, and she sighs, I'm like, yep, that's what I expected, but we still got to do it anyway. Let's talk through it. Let's figure it out. Let's
Change
keep
the
going.
plans.
Or change the plan, whatever. But when I'm feeling bad about myself and I'm already a little bit wounded and you sigh, it is like you just hit me in the face with a rowboat oar or something. And I am like crushed. Do you think the mental state of the recipient of these kinds of gestures factors in, or is that just me?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you described it so well. Like when you're flying high and you feel good and you're strong, you can take anything. You take it in stride, you keep going. But yeah, if you're depleted, tired, stressed, or feeling a little wounded in your relationship, yeah, you're not going to take that well. And that's good to know about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I also think that it's the reverse for the person like me, the sire, the eye roller. Like I can often contain that, but like to throw in, like for example, the last night when I did, I mean, it was that exaggerated. I was like, this was not anything we discussed. And now we're going to, I'm like, you're throwing me off course. So like, and I just wasn't prepared for that. So I do need to work on that a lot.
Laura, do you have any facial expressions that are active in your relationship?
Oh no, it's all smiles in my relationship.
Oh, that's
No,
great.
I am pretty sure. I don't think I eye roll, but I do that. Like you can see, right? I got the marks here, right in the center.
The between the eyebrows, kind of
Yeah,
squinty marks.
and I'm married to a people pleaser, so he's just all pleasant and wonderful. But I mean, I have a very expressive face, so,
You do.
and I'm not at all shy about my emotions. So it all shows up here.
Expressive and engaging. I can't wait. I can't wait for the end when we're going to promote your new YouTube channel, The Illustrating Therapist, at The Illustrating Therapist. Check that out on YouTube so you can see this engaging face that Sherry and I are getting a chance to sit across from. Well, this is a great start, Sherry. What I've learned here is you might be the sire, you might be the eye roller, and I take those usually pretty well as a form of communication. The thing we want to avoid is becoming the what the hell squinter. The what the hell squinter is not welcome in healthy relationships.
Not squinter, just the what the hell look.
Look, which includes a squint.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Great. Well, glad we knocked that out. Listeners, Laura Hammock is a clinical social worker licensed in Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., and a mental health therapist. She works with adults, both individuals and couples, working through the impacts of, get ready for all this, anxiety, depression, ADHD, addiction, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, trauma, and relationship issues. I don't know about anybody else, but I was checking a lot of mental boxes as I was reading through that list.
Which all maybe help feed into an addiction.
That's right. Yeah, I think the two might go hand in hand. Laura, I really wish you'd expand your narrow area of practice. When I get emails from listeners, I'm like, nope, she doesn't know about that. Nope, she doesn't know about that. I mean, just weeding so much stuff out. My goodness. Have you ever thought about specialization, or do you just like the broad, like bring it all on?
You know what's funny is that couples work is actually specialized, but I am not a like deep and like I am a more like shallow and everything person rather than like shallow and wide rather than deep and narrow. But with couple stuff, you get to have a specialty, but also do everything because you've got all the problems with one person combined with all the problems with the other person. And then whatever that happens smushed up in the dynamic between the two of them. It's fascinating stuff.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. It's like kind of like being a pediatrician, right? Isn't that, I mean, you're dealing with all things kids.
Specialty,
all
but
the
it's
things.
Everything.
Yeah,
I love it.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for being here for our second episode of the Ask Laura series here on the Untoxicated podcast. Are you ready to take some questions?
I am ready.
Excellent. Some of these came from listeners. Some of these came from internally from our Echoes of Recovery group. And some of these came from Matt and Sherry, mostly Matt. But I know you'll be interested too. All right. The first few questions are not in any particular, they're not in a sequence that feeds one off of another. They're just rando. So here we go. All right, Laura. How does trauma work in the brain? Our listener said, I feel like my brain gets stuck in the trauma and triggers affect me, even though things are safe.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to use two metaphors. I think a lot in visual metaphors, so it's too bad this is like an audio medium. I use two metaphors. And the first one is a traffic metaphor, right? So I live and work in the Washington, D.C. area. There's a lot of traffic here. And the brain is a little bit like a constellation of roadways. So trauma, the way I think about trauma is that it's a construction area that shuts down a whole area of the brain. And it could be that it has like fingers out everywhere. And then just imagine that construction area and then imagine around it, you have like an electric fence. So not only can
Okay.
traffic not use that part of your brain, but every time a part of your thoughts touch that or your experience touches that, it electrifies it.
Okay.
So that's the way I think about trauma. And of course, the answer to that is that you have to be able to metabolize or process the trauma in lots of different ways. I mean, you can do that through just honestly, talking with a friend or talking with a therapist, or there's lots of different trauma processing, journaling. Um, but what I will say, and this is kind of goes to the second part of the question, is, trauma can feel like a blast, like an incoming like blast. And when you feel like like let's say trauma is like a bomb that sort of like drops on your life, and you can see the big gaping hole that happened there, the wound that needs to be repaired and healed. And you've done a lot of work to repair and heal over that giant wound. But then, you start going through your life and you start hitting all these pieces of shrapnel, which is like kind of come out of the bomb blast. And it's demoralizing because you're like,
Mm.
I did this. I healed this.
Uh,
Like we're past it. Why am I feeling like this? And trauma has this way of like sending you back in time. It's like a time travel. So you kind of forget. You forget all the progress you've made. You forget like what supports you have now, how resourced you are internally. You forget how much progress your partner has made. And there you are back in the past. And it's completely normal. Like those feelings are completely normal. And it's those pieces of shrapnel, I think, that can be so demoralizing because you end up having to fix those wounds as well. And you just don't know where they are. You have to kind of, hit the trigger before you realize where that wound is and you can process it.
it's
So
really
so that was my
interesting.
two visual metaphors. They were two and they were kind of mixed up. So
Oh, they were great.
Mhm.
We meet a lot of people, a lot of couples where um, if somebody has one of those pieces of shrapnel and it kind of sends them back into the trauma, and then they bring it up again with their partner, the partner's reaction almost universally is, "Hey, we already did this. Or
yep.
do we have to talk about this forever? Or are we never going to stop talking about something exaggerative that is equally painful to the person who brought it up?" Something along those
Yeah.
lines. And so what we tell people is, if your partner is bringing something up and they're bringing it up repeatedly, at least in my relationship with Sherry, I look at that as a gift because she's telling me where the pain is. And so, yes, there's a perspective on it that it sucks because we're doing this again, but at least she's not stuffing it down and stifling it and cutting me out of what's going on in her brain, which I've learned is way worse.
Yeah.
When you meet, do you ever have that feedback from couples? Are they like, God, do we have to talk about this again? One of the partners, and how
Oh
do you
yeah.
counsel
Yes, you have to talk about it again. You
them?
have to talk about it over and over and over again. And I think the key for the partner who's on the receiving end of it is to try not to take it so personally.
Yes.
Like, I think they feel, okay, so let's say this is somebody who, whose partner is new, who is sober. They've done a lot of like kind of repair work on their relationship, and their spouse keeps running into triggers where they feel scared again or feel like, they've, been thrown back in time. And when they share that with their partner who's sober, the partner who's sober feels like, you're not recognizing any of the work I've done. I'm such a different
Right.
person now than I used to be. And I think that's an easy place to go. But if you just put yourself aside for a sec and you concentrate on your partner's experience, you all they're saying is, I'm having this feeling and I want to share it with you. They're not saying you need to fix this. They're not saying, sometimes they are saying, I need reassurance. I need to know that that you're still on the straight and narrow, and you haven't, walked off of it or whatever. But a lot of times all they need to do is say, I'm still suffering and dealing with this. And I just want you to know. So being able to hold steady in those moments when you're the sober one, it's important, but it's very, very hard.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But just having that perspective that it's normal, that your partner's not broken, the fact that they keep going back to a traumatic situation doesn't mean that they haven't done the work or they're not trying hard enough or they're never going to forgive you, which are the kinds of things we hear. It just means that electric fence is still around that construction area. Back to that visual metaphor, is touching that electric fence, is that when we use the word trigger or trauma, to me, when I hear you say touch that electric fence, that's the little trigger, that's the little zap.
That's the trigger. Yeah, that's the trigger.
Okay.
That's the indication that you've hit the trauma area. And
Yeah.
I mean, you got to dismantle it, right? And it's super painful to walk into the trauma, but it's possible to do. And if the two of you are stabilized and you can do that for each other, that's fantastic. That's the thing that repairs the relationship.
And if we try to do that, I think we have to tread carefully, because my reaction to Sherry's trigger has a lot to do with whether the trauma will be healed or actually made worse. So if she trusts me to bring something to me and I react in a way as to say, oh, wow, that must stink that's
Still there.
bothering you again, and if I'm careful with how I say, oh, we've talked about that, but let's talk about it again. I'm sorry that's still hurting you. That's so different from, oh my God, are you never going to forgive me? Are we going to talk about this for the rest of your life? Which is like, it's an overused metaphor, but that's pouring fuel on the fire of her pain to react that way.
Well, and to go back to the conversation that started all of this, your face is important as well. If you were to give Sherry the what the hell face,
Yeah.
how likely is she to come to you with things in the future, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, she's unlikely, right? She's really reaching out for a point of connection, even though it feels as though she's wounding you by doing it. But if you're able to take it on and stay steady, like that really could be a connective moment between the two of you. And I'm sure you all have experienced it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When you first started answering the question, you were listing ways that people can process trauma, conversation with a good friend. One of the ways is direct conversation between the two partners who experience the trauma, maybe in a lot of the examples that Sherry and I have, a trauma that my drinking caused. So we were both participants, but it traumatized her. It didn't really much affect me. And that, to me, that's the most effective way to process it, as long as it's done right. So it can either be great or it can be terrible, versus going to a friend. As long as the friend is a good listener, it's likely to be a little bit more neutral. Do you see that, like, couples talking together, that there are two edges to that sword, and one can be really good, but one can be really bad if they don't do it right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I have maybe a two-stage trauma processing in my head, where I think that in order to be able to process it together, you have to have talked about it enough or processed it enough in your head and in your psyche to be able to sort it out, so that it's not coming out as just a blast.
Blah. Yeah.
Because, it's delicate. Both people are pretty fragile in that moment. And so it really helps to strengthen yourself and to be able to have processed a lot of it in advance before you start the healing of the relationship. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right? You're talking a little bit about how you reconnect, how you heal the relationship.
Well, yes. And when you talk about doing couples therapy, I think this is one of the most valuable aspects of couples therapy, having somebody, a professional like you, to guide that conversation, because it's not an easy conversation. And I mean, I think that's the biggest value you bring. You don't dole out advice and solve everyone's problems for them. You help them guide conversations, right?
Yeah, for couples, I mean, it's less about guiding conversation. It's more about building skills, honestly. And these skills are developmental. So by that, I mean, there's an art and a skill to being a good sharer, and there is an art and a skill to being a good listener. And there's a lot of ways you can get in the way of that. If you are sharing something and while you're doing it, you are critical and blaming and vitriolic, well, the listener's going to have a hard time understand what you're saying and empathizing with you. So But that skill of being able to get underneath the criticism, particularly when you've been very wounded, and you feel completely entitled to be as critical and blaming as you want to be, but to be able to get under that and to talk about the hurt and to talk about the damage and to talk about the fear, like that's the part that the listener will really be able to pick up on, understand. And that's not just like how you have a conversation. Those are skills that are developmental and difficult to, you have to practice them a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And applicable elsewhere in life too. I feel like I don't want to wander too far here, but our country is so divided. And when you see people try to interact that have differing viewpoints, when they come in so hot and the first thing out of their mouth is an insult, how do you ever expect the other person to listen to the rest of what you're saying? It's not
Yeah.
different in couples, right? In relationships.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a macro, right, view of what I do every day. I mean, obviously definitely see it in our country. I mean, it's hard for us to talk with people who have very different opinions. And those skills, like, where are we supposed to learn those? I mean,
Yeah,
most of us don't get that good modeling from our parents. So it's hard to know how to talk to somebody who feels so differently about things.
absolutely. I think the solution to that is everyone should just agree with everything I say, and then there'll be no arguments.
There you
It'll
go.
be great. Next
Oh,
question.
there was an eye roll. Then we know.
Yeah, there it was. What are we, 10 minutes in? It didn't take too long. That's great. Laura, next question. How do I reconnect with my partner after detaching? And now that his sobriety is becoming increasingly long term.
I'm so glad you asked that question.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I'm working on a new metaphor, so you guys can like poke holes in this metaphor. Okay, ready?
All right.
So the metaphor is, I think of addiction as one in the family of betrayals. So there's infidelity, there's financial betrayal, there's addiction. I think these all fall into the category of betrayals. And
Okay.
what an addiction can do, in the same way that infidelity could do this, is just throw a bomb into the middle of your relationship. So if you think of your relationship as a bridge, okay, here we go with the metaphor, right? If you think of your relationship as a bridge, now you've got a bomb that is like absolutely blown up the middle of your bridge, right? And the first thing you have to do is just like crisis, just like crisis management, essentially. So you have to like cordon everything off and make sure that no cars are driving off of your bridge.
Right.
You basically just have to like survive. So there's a period of time, which we've all experienced, where it just felt like crisis management. We were just surviving. Somewhat throughout this crisis management, but maybe towards kind of the end, each person starts to really strengthen themselves individually. And, the person with the addiction is getting help, hopefully, through a therapist, support groups, 12-step recovery, the resources that you all provide, maybe doing their own bibliotherapy, whatever it is, they're getting support somehow, and they're building themselves up, because it's too easy to kind of either stay in blame or shut down in shame. So they're getting themselves a little bit more sturdy, more able to kind of manage their own self and stay sober. On the other hand, the spouse is also having to be doing their own rebuilding. And that means that process of making sure that you're feeding yourself, you're doing the things that you're interested in, that you're detaching and not spending too much time focused on your partner's work when you need to focus on your own. So to me, that's the process of building up, rebuilding the parts of the bridge. And once you get to the point where you've rebuilt both sides and the bridge is starting to touch in the middle, okay, this is where we start to talk about healing, right? How do we
Okay.
reconnect? So this person has asked, right? I've detached, I've done the work. Hopefully they've also done a lot of strengthening on their own. They've started to like spend some time with their own interests. They've gotten their own supports all over the place. And now they are, maybe ready to engage with their partner again. So in my world of like sort of healing, what you have when the two parts of the bridge start to touch is a one lane road, because that's all it can handle right now, right? It's only got enough support for one lane. And that means that the hurt partner, the spouse, has to be able to say the things that the damage that has happened to them. This is the beginning of healing. If you haven't gotten to this
Mm-hmm.
part, you're not really healing yet. You're just existing. You're just still in that part
Mm-hmm.
where you're either building up or you're still separate. So that's the initial thing is the spouse says, these are all the ways that I have been hurt. And the sober partner has to be able to hold steady, just like we were talking about. And it's not until that person, the spouse, has been able to say all the things on their one-way road
Mm-hmm.
that you can kind of open the bridge up to more traffic.
I
And
love it.
that's when the partner who is sober can start to talk about their experience, what happened to them. But you can tell there's a ton of individual strengthening work that has to be done before those two parts of the bridge meet. Was that
I
too
love it.
abstract?
No, I absolutely love the metaphor. What did you think, Sherry?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like the different sides of the bridge, they need to be really strong to secure the new bridge or, the fixing of that middle groundwork. So I feel like it seems very logical to me. I like metaphors and like illustrations in my head to kind of understand that concept of the rebuilding and how
Yeah.
it has to be. But yeah, I never thought about, I would say the one lane. I was like, wow, that's a
It's
really,
really helpful.
yeah. Because
It's
until
sequencing,
you,
yeah.
yeah. And until you, can talk about it, I like that. That's a good way to describe, like, until you can talk about it, you really haven't healed. You haven't really been
Yeah,
working on it.
you might be living alongside each other. And
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of that. I mean, I don't want to rush through the crisis management and the rebuilding. I mean, that can be years, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Years and years and
Yes.
years of
Yeah.
rebuilding yourself and managing crisis. But when you are ready to start to heal the relationship, that's the sequence. That's what's required. The one lane road first, and then you can put more traffic on it.
The
And
sequence is
it's
helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's
When
not a
we,
matter of, you can't have both people sharing at the same time or else it goes sideways.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's really helpful. When we talk to people about what relationship recovery is all about, they want to get right into the relationship part, the communication, the cooperation, the solving. And one of the things that we've learned is there's two pieces that have to come first: the individual recovery for both sides, and then there has to be an environment of emotional safety, because you can't be creating new traumas by yelling and screaming and cursing and name calling and trying to repair at the same time. But so once you've got those two, then the trauma processing can take place. The hearing all the hurts. One thing I want to react to and ask you about, so both people are working on rebuilding their side of the bridge. One of the things we found is, and it's not always the same, one side typically builds faster than the other. They don't,
Yep.
like, we're not meeting at dead center, right?
No.
What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, there's a lot of waiting in this game, you know? I mean, you could be a super fast builder, build up your whole side of things, and there you are waiting for your partner to beat you there. And it takes them 3 years to get to where
Mm-hmm.
you want them to be. And and that's a matter of, and first of all, I mean, it does take a long time. I mean, and you want your partner to rebuild well. You don't want it to be slapdash, and you don't want it to be bring in some cheap contractor. You want it to be sustained, long lasting building. But sometimes you can be waiting a long time for your partner to beat you there. And I think one of the things that could be really frustrating is if you look over and you can see this, they're not really making a lot of progress over there.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing if they're just very slow and it's taking a lot, but they're not making a lot of progress. I think that can be frustrating.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like your role as like a couples therapist, or maybe it's just learning to practice like that one lane road. I
Yeah.
am a little bit of a picture kind of in my head person. I imagine like the person that's got the hard hat and the vest and the slow and the stop, like,
Yeah.
having to take your turn, but they're standing there waiting and waiting and waiting and, for the slow person to kind of catch up. But
Yeah.
Well, this ties in really well with another one of the questions that we received. Somebody asked us, how do we become comfortable talking about the timing, the time that it takes? How do we become comfortable with the journey being the destination instead of being frustrated with a faraway finish line? So in other words, this person's finished their side of the bridge and they're waiting, and that's frustrating. How do you counsel that person?
Well, in my experience, we all have a lot more building that we can do. And so there's a lot that we can be doing as we're waiting. But I do think it's frustrating. And I think you have to constantly check in with yourself. Like, is it worth waiting for? Are they
Mm-hmm.
making any progress over there? If it's slow, are you willing to wait for that? And it's
Yeah.
okay, I think, to ask yourself those questions with some frequency. But I also think it's important to note that, growth is constant. Connection is not a one and done thing. It is constant. So whatever work you're doing to support and create a foundation for this will set your marriage up for a much healthier future.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. That's good stuff. Okay. We also got a question from someone who wants to know if you believe sobriety is a prerequisite for relationship repair if the drinker has experienced addiction. So obviously they have at some point crossed that invisible line and it was truly a problem. This person's worried that their partner is going to be sober for some period and then start to bring back in well, maybe I'll just drink a glass of wine with dinner here and there. What do you say when you hear couples talk about that in therapy?
Well, I think that's a case by case situation, and I wouldn't be able to speak more generally to that. But what I can hear from that question is just like the anxiety and fear that that brings up in the spouse, and I think that that's valid. So I think if what that's doing is it is making that person hesitant to connect with their partner again, to me that feels like a valid reaction. Um, because I think it can slide, maybe not super quickly, but eventually into, more alcoholic behavior, in which case, you're kind of starting from scratch again. So I hesitate to talk to that specific situation because I don't know. I mean, maybe that is a person who can kind of slip over into slip over the invisible line and pull themselves back. But as we all know, that is fairly rare.
Yeah.
Once you've descended over into alcoholic drinking, it is hard for your brain to not slip back into that pattern once again. So I think that person has every right to be wary. I'm not saying that I know for a fact that that person is going to, you know, slip back into that pattern, but I think it's reasonable to be wary and skeptical of that.
Yeah. I'm a little more definitive than you are on this particular point. I think once the person has, exhibited addictive kind of tendencies toward alcohol, there's no going back, and the one glass of wine with dinner would be terrifying. Maybe this is a product of the fact that you do work with people one on one, and so you give them the benefit of the doubt. And what Sherry and I see is more kind of in a group setting, and just in all the cases we've seen, I've just never ever seen where someone can go back to moderating. I know I sound very dramatic when I say it that way, but I haven't. And
Well, I
as
think you
someone
have
who
more
wanted to do
experience.
that,
Yeah.
well, but as someone who wanted to do that for so many years and said, "Oh, I'm going to try again. I'm going to try again. This time this is my plan, and I'm going to be able to do it."
Moderate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would never work.
And I load up the bridge again, Sherry.
Not even just our personal relationship, but people we know from close friends and family members that have tried that without any help. Like it just never has.
But I do really like the point you said at the end. Like if it's concerning to the partner, the non-drinker, the partner, then that is valid. And what I would say to the drinker is, if you're willing to risk your relationship to bring alcohol back into your life, then clearly you've got a problem with alcohol. Because people who don't have a problem with alcohol aren't willing to blow up, to potentially take a chance on blowing up their marriage over alcohol. Those people without a problem with alcohol are like, I guess I just won't drink because it's not that big of a factor in my life. Yeah. Interesting. Good stuff. Okay. We want to talk about a plateau versus confrontation. Sometimes people feel kind of stuck in their recoveries, but we think there's also a benefit to reaching a plateau and getting comfortable there again before pushing through to the next level, whatever the next thing is in their own personal growth and recovery work. So what do you think about that? And I think there's a time factor. So this is a compound question, sorry. But is it okay to feel stuck? And at what point are you just stuck and you're not on a plateau and you really do need to move past it into what's next? A lot there. Good luck.
Yeah, that's a
I'm glad I'm
complicated
not
question.
you right now. Yeah, good luck.
18 questions in that.
Yeah, exactly. There's I counted 5. I think the important thing to realize is that growth of any kind is stressful. It's stressful, it's uncomfortable, it pushes you, it takes a lot of energy. And I think this is true of everybody in the scenario that we're talking about. It is certainly true for the drinker or the person who's newly sober. It's very much true for the spouse who's dealing with it. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to grow and stress yourself out and then just relax for a bit and take in, just enjoy your relationship and where you've gotten to for a bit before you have to push yourself to grow again. And I think what we need to think about when we're in those plateau periods is, are we doing this so that we can generate new energy so that we can grow again? Or are we doing this because we're avoiding growth?
Okay.
So I think if you can answer the question, oh yeah, no, I'm doing this so that I've got enough energy. I'm feeling pretty depleted. That last bit of growth took a lot out of me. I mean, this is true of all of us for anything, not just, kind of managing sobriety. But I'm going to be ready to grow soon as I fill up my energy bucket again, versus people who actually feel stuck and feel like they're not making any progress and are kind of plateauing. That's a different feeling, I think.
I think instincts play so heavily here. I've been so impressed with learning from people how their instincts talk to them if they're brave enough to listen. I think there is some internal voice that'll tell you whether you're stuck or whether you're just re-energizing. And it sounds like that's what you're saying.
Generally, feeling stuck is a very familiar place.
Yeah.
If it feels familiar, it's probably not re-energizing, it's probably stuck. In which case you got to figure out, I think of stuck as being in a loop. It's like right, that's for you, Sherry. Just like a roundabout that you can't get off of, you're like stuck, you're just going round and round and round. And so your job is to look for the exit ramp. Like, how do I get off of this? And it's almost never my partner needs to do something. Yeah. It's always I need to do something. And you could do something that gets you out of the loop that blows other things up. And that's okay, because it's an experiment. Everything is an experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's use your bridge metaphor to, believe it or not, that 5-part question has a follow-up. Let's keep going. So the bridge metaphor,
6 questions.
Both sides have done a good job of building their side of the bridge. In my terminology, I would say that there's been emotional safety established in the relationship in addition to the individual work. And the next step, we're on that plateau. That's what we've been doing. The next step is opening that one lane to the one-way traffic. And the partner of the alcoholic has been conditioned during the years of active addiction that when they say something, they get a really reactive, perhaps emotionally abusive response. They get shut down, they get darvoed, they get gaslit, whatever. And so the idea of moving off this plateau of I've been working on myself, even though I can sense the emotional safety around me, the idea of confronting the person with my traumas, it's really, really, really hard. But I don't know what else to say other than, yeah, but that's the next step. You just got to find a way to do it, don't you?
I mean, you can certainly choose not to. That is a choice. Okay. But I can tell you what happens and what the stakes are there.
Please.
So I think what you're talking about is a very natural conflict avoidance. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and who wouldn't be conflict
Yeah.
avoidant in that situation,
Right.
honestly, right? You've been yelled at, you've been blamed, you've been darvoed. Who wants to walk into that lion's den? And yet, and here's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining that these people have had a lot of different types of conversations leading up into this point. So they're not like, okay, we're going to try out our new conflict skills with the biggest problem in our lives. Intensity 10 out of 10. We're going to work on it with this one. My guess is they've had other conflicts, and they kind of see how they go, right? And obviously, if the newly sober person, or I guess you're calling it alcoholic, is defensive and critical and blaming and difficult to talk to, then it's going to be hard to think about taking that step. But I think it's a matter of tuning in and seeing like whether that person has changed enough to be able to start the healing process.
Is that a place where a professional can be particularly instrumental? We meet a lot of people who they've tried couples therapy during active addiction, right? And it was a freaking disaster. And so
Yeah.
now one partner or both, but usually just one, is like skull and crossbones against couples therapy. That didn't work. It was a waste of money. But I
Yeah.
feel like maybe this is a place where a professional can help the person that's got this anxiety about engaging in confrontation, help them get that one lane open. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
be an advertisement for all therapists, but this is a place where it can actually be really effective, right?
Yeah, and I would back up even a step from there by saying that as a couples therapist, I mean, I see a lot of couples who are dealing with betrayal of some kind, and I think of addiction as being in that family of
Right.
problems. And when I'm looking at a couple, I'm assessing three things. When I'm looking, are you guys ready for couples therapy? Right? Because couples therapy is hard. It's that whole growth plateau. Like it's hard. So I want to know, are you ready? And so for each partner, I'm looking for three things. And the first thing I'm looking for is, are you in the middle of a crisis? Because if you're in the middle of a crisis, basically what you're suggesting that we do is build a house while the house is burning down. We can't do
Mm-hmm.
that. All we
Yeah.
can do, and I think the couples therapist can be actually really helpful in the middle of a crisis and just like navigating and surviving, but don't expect to grow, don't expect to heal during that time. It's just not possible. There's a
So
crisis happening.
are you really clear with clients? Like, this is
I
where you
am.
are. This is what you can get out of this.
Like you're the first responder in that situation. Just
Yeah.
getting them to a safe kind of point to navigate
And
them
when
out of
when
that
they
crisis.
respond back, like, why aren't we doing the next step? Why aren't we
Right.
healing? Why can't we have this conversation? I'm like, you're not ready. You're not
Mm.
ready. You can't, you're in the middle of crisis. We'll definitely start or try things on the sides to see if they, but a lot of times it's just the nervous systems are on fire. You can't do it. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. The second thing I'm looking for is how strong are each of the people? So, and by strength, I'm not even looking for a recovery plan. It's not a check boxes, but it is, can you emotionally regulate? Do you know when you're grumpy or unhappy and or activated? And can you bring yourself down? What are the ways that you can bring yourself down? And can I see that in session? When you're getting activated, can I see you deep breathing? Do you tell me I'm kind of upset right now? I don't think I should be talking or whatever. Like, do you have a sense of that? That's number one. Number two, do you know enough about yourself? Like, do you know what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not so good at, what you find like exciting, what you find terrifying, what's overstimulating to you? And can you say all of those things without judgment about yourself? And when I say this, I'm not talking about 100%. I'm not looking for 100%. I'm looking for 20%. I'm looking for like little capacities in all these ways. But the
Yeah.
final thing is can you support yourself when you're doing hard things? Like, do you have a way of like supporting yourself, parenting yourself when you are suffering, when you need care, when you're doing something hard and you fall down because you failed the first time you did it? Do you have a way of being you're the best internal parent to yourself that you can possibly be? Again, 20%, not 100% on any of those things. So those to me are the things that make up strength, like personal strength. So I'm looking for that.
that last piece, the third one, that's some form of resilience, right? Some form of, can I get myself up and dust myself off?
But it's also self-compassion. It's all the things that parents do for kids.
Okay.
It's compassion. It is um, caring for yourself. It is encouraging. It is goal setting and helping with goal setting. It's limiting yourself when you're doing stuff that's out of control. Like it's all of those supports that your parents give kids that we have to do for ourselves when we're grown-ups. So do they have like a pretty good internal parent that can
Yeah.
support them when they're doing tough things? So that's about being a strong person. And then the final thing I'm looking for is what is your motivation for change? And I'm not
Mhm.
talking about motivation to change your partner because everybody has a lot of motivation for that. But like what is your motivation to change yourself? Right? And like a
Yes.
lot like and that's a two-parter. One, it is like, do you have energy for change? Are you willing to put in the work? And the other one is like, do you have a sense of what your contribution to this dynamic is? And it's a hard question when you're talking about a betrayal system because the hurt person is so hurt and damaged. And they've been so hurt and damaged over time that they feel it does not feel like they need to be gentle. It does not feel like they need to be open. Like if they feel almost like they're going to betray themselves by being those things.
Mm.
And yet, if they continue to be blaming and critical and, and forceful,
Like combative, just have
combative,
that attitude. Yeah.
or they're not able to take in their partner's experience, like they're not ready to do the one lane bridge yet. They're not ready for it. So I don't know that I answered your question, but I answered
Oh,
a
yeah.
question.
No, you are good. This is good stuff. I'm glad we got you all warmed up before. Believe it or not, I have one more follow up to that. I think we're up to 12 questions in one. Um, okay, so this is more for you counseling me, and people get to listen to it. Um, so Sherry and I are not therapists and we're not psychologists, and we are very careful. Everybody we meet, that's one of the very first things we say. That's not our role. I am certainly a researcher with a lot of curiosity, and we are meeting facilitators. Now, that said, we see the same patterns repeated over and over again. And there are times where I will make a suggestion, like, for instance, I feel like you've been on this plateau for a long time. The next step is some form of confrontation. And I'm learning that confrontation is maybe not the best chosen word because some people think of that automatically as combative when I don't mean it as combative, but maybe addressing. Okay. So maybe the next step is to address the resentments that you're feeling, the trauma that you're feeling with your partner. Maybe the next step is to open that one lane bridge. And I'm not suggesting that I be there as part of that. Maybe there's a therapist, maybe you do it yourself. So I'm not trying to insert myself in the role of therapist. Boy, can you feel the insecurity coming out of me as I'm explaining this question? But I do occasionally get feedback that's pretty negative. Like you don't know what I'm going through. You don't understand. You're not empathetic. How dare you? And so my question to you is, I'm sure that there are times as a therapist where you make suggestions to couples that are based on your training and your knowledge and your experience, and you feel good about them. And one or the other person, or maybe both, storm out of your office and they're like, this person's a quack. I'm done.
Totally.
What do you do with that? What do you do with that? Help me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say, Matt, like you are so kind and you are so empathetic and you are trying so hard to help people. So like I know that you feel insecure about this and it sounds like you've gotten your wrist slapped a couple of times from people, but like I mean, I hope everybody knows that your heart is in the right place on all of this. Um, so
Thank you.
okay, let me start with that. So, but of course, right? We can see if you've seen a lot of cycles of this, you can see where people are going wrong. I mean, I know when I entered the program, I I immediately got feedback of like detach. That's not detaching. Detach more. And I was so I mean, it was a little bit of a smart, like a little bit of a sting. And it also was very helpful, extremely helpful to get that feedback. But not everyone is at a place where they are willing to take it in. And my experience with folks who are not at a place where willing to take it in is that they don't. And this doesn't have to do with the actuality of who you are and what you understand about them, but that person doesn't feel very understood. And it could be part of their history, it could be part of their trauma pattern, but they're not feeling at that point understood now. So the question is, how do you, when you're looking at someone and you're seeing like they want to get to this goal, right? Their goal is here, but they're going off in this direction. The things that they're doing, and maybe we can talk about a real example rather than in kind of abstract terms, but I think that's what you're talking about, right? You can see where they're trying to get to, but they're doing a bunch of things that are taking them off course.
Well, and I think you made a really good point. Our program has always been for this person a soft landing. It's always been a place where in other places in life they haven't felt heard, and now they're here and they're heard. And all they've been is heard, which is great. That's our main goal, right? But I've been doing this for too long, Laura, to just sit there and watch someone just be heard when I'm like, oh my God, they need a nudge. They need a nudge. They need a nudge. How do I give them a nudge? And all of a sudden, the person who's done nothing but listen is nudging them. And they're like, whoa, where did this come from? And so maybe it's just, maybe it's just the dynamic of, kind of like what we do. And I don't know, maybe we need to be more clear up front that there's going to be nudges sometimes. I don't know.
Well, here, I'll give you a couple. So first of all, confrontation is a big part of the work as a therapist, and therapists who don't confront aren't really doing their job.
Right.
Not to cast aspersions, but like it's a big part of what we do. And there are varying degrees of confrontation, all the way from like extremely gentle to bombshell confrontations.
Right.
Okay, I have given a couple of bombshell confrontations, and I can say that some of them weren't necessarily planned out.
Just couldn't help it. Here it comes.
It just poof, came out of my mouth. But with somebody who is feeling not heard or is very resistant to confrontation, as gentle as possible is usually where you start. And these are hard, like finessing all the degrees of confrontation, I think are really hard. But one of the things I think that really resonates with people is that we are not a monolith. We are full of different parts. And the part of us that's super protective, that wants to clap back or to say the thing or roll their eyes or dip down into like a sea of despair, and be like, it never goes my way, or it's just like round and round and round with anxiety. Like those are all protective parts. And those parts sometimes are driving the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're saying is there's a part of you that gets in the way sometimes when you're trying to connect. And that part obviously has a lot to say. But you may want to see if you can't nudge that part out of the way so that, a different part of you can drive the bus this time, the one that wants to connect.
I love your metaphors. They're so good. Are they all traffic related? What is it with you and traffic?
I don't know.
Road construction.
It's true.
Bridges, road
and
construction.
bombs.
Now we're on a bus.
Bombs.
They're usually agricultural, honestly.
That's great.
But all that to say, like, I think the part of you thing can be really softening, because then that person doesn't have to identify entirely with their defensive part. They can, when you say you're kind of defensive, they're like, no, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that's a defensive response. But like you can say a part of you feels this way, but a part of you also wants to do this. And I think that that's a much more gentle way of getting them to kind of like think about the parts that live within them, the conflict that resides internally.
Oh, that's so good. That makes me feel so much better. And I'm going to take my big takeaway from that explanation is going to be that I've never dropped a bomb on anybody, and you have, Laura. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm kinder and softer than you are.
Yes, I think you probably are, honestly.
No. All right. Listener, we are going to tell you about our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to talk about something that's really affecting the majority of us. I would say it's affecting all of us, whether we know it or not. So there's an intriguing tease. So we're going to shift gears pretty hard when we come back. But we're going to get some advice from Lara on how we navigate this time in our world. And I'm sure that advice will come in the form of like a combine tractor or an airplane. Or a train. So we'll be back to hear Lara's take on that in just a second. But first, we need to tell you that we are sponsored by SoberLink. SoberLink is the premier remote alcohol monitoring system, combining cutting-edge technology with compassionate design to support accountability in recovery and family law. It's the top-of-the-line handheld breathalyzer. Today, we are talking about tools, transportation tools and otherwise, for nervous system regulation, communication, listening effectively, and generally making life better, getting healthier. We use tools all day, every day to get the job done and to improve our lives. In our families, sometimes we need tools to help us rebuild trust and to be held accountable. And sometimes in co-parenting situations, we need tools to ensure safety and keep communication peaceful and effective. And that's where SoberLink comes in. SoberLink is not just a handheld breathalyzer you can buy at the drugstore or on the internet, a cheapie that breaks or gives unreliable results. SoberLink's best-in-class service and product combination includes built-in facial recognition, even when you're making a squinty eye, what the hell face, built-in facial recognition and tamper detection, expert in-house support, email daily, weekly, or monthly reporting that's court admissible in all 50 states and Canada, unlimited testing days, and scheduled testing to build accountability and trust. SoberLink is the right tool for verifying that our needs for a sober partner or our need for a sober co-parent are being met. Polite confrontation and accurate verification.
So let me tell you what SoberLink is to me. It's a sign that you are serious this time, that you hear me when I tell you I can't trust you, that you're willing to put your ego aside for a second and do something for me, for our family. SoberLink is an indication that you love me more, that you love the kids more than you are selfish about doing it your way.
Right now, SoberLink is offering Untoxicated podcast listeners a free offer ID valid for a $100 enrollment bonus. Go to soberlink.com/untoxicated.
Claim your offer ID for a $100 enrollment bonus. There is no commitment required to claim your offer ID while this promotion lasts, and you can use your $100 enrollment bonus when you're ready to place your order. To claim your offer ID, you will only be asked to provide your name and email address. No personal details, no commitment, no credit card number. To claim your offer ID for your $100 enrollment bonus, please go to soberlink.com/untoxicated.
The Untoxicated podcast is part of a 501c3 nonprofit research organization.
We learn from you, our listeners, and we share with you what we learn. It is a growth and discovery-oriented symbiotic relationship, a partnership, and there is nothing more important to our understanding about the impact of addiction and emotional abuse than hearing from you about your instincts.
Right now, we're trying to learn more about your experiences with emotional safety and the opposite of emotional safety, emotional abuse. What role do your instincts play in navigating that? Whether you are wondering if you have experienced emotional abuse in your relationship, or you're wondering if your behavior, your reactive behavior, could be considered emotionally abusive, we have a confidential, easy-to-take survey ready to help you better understand what you've experienced. Our survey will only take a minute or two to complete, and as I said, we will hold your response in strict confidentiality.
Please go to untoxicatedsurvey.org to take the survey. As a thank you for participating in our research, we will share helpful resources, including a free ebook, and we will respond to you to share your feedback on your experiences.
We respond to each and every survey response directly and confidentially. We offer to meet with you a 30-minute conversation that is absolutely free. We learn more about your situation, and if it feels like a good fit, we invite you to join us to learn and share and grow and evolve.
Free resources, including a free ebook, free feedback from us, and a free conversation with people who truly get it. Listen to your instincts and take our survey.
Please go to untoxicatedsurvey.org. I think one of the places where we most commonly get Sherry's eye roll is when we're prepping for a podcast episode, and I show her that she is again going to be asked to read the sentence, "It is a growth and discovery-oriented symbiotic relationship." Look, you eye rolled right there. She's like, "Oh, Jesus, are you serious?"
It's like Chat GPT is like written.
Do not compare me to Chat GPT.
You know, like when you say, okay, can you edit this? Or Gemini, pardon me, maybe you're more of the Google Gemini. But like when you're like, I just want to see how they would respond and change my response in an email. And it's like so formal and is not the way I speak. Sometimes I feel like that's what it is.
Chat GPT. You just touched the electric fence pretty hard there. You just pushed me into the electric.
Third rail.
Listen, I understand it has a role and I'm not poo-pooing it for anybody else, but as a writer, anyway.
Well, sorry.
I'm sure I will grow and mature and use it in my life every day.
I just throw around symbiotic all the time in our house. So.
I know. You're always saying that. All right. Lara, welcome back. For the first time in our lifetimes, this is going to be a pretty hard turn we're taking, but let's go with it together. For the first time in our lifetimes, the general public has been given access to the raw and despicable evidence compiled against a sexual predator. The pictures, the descriptions, the communication, and the unimaginable depth of depravity is shocking, to say the least. My first question about this, about the Epstein files, is this what it's like for soldiers who witness atrocities of war, who I've always heard they're being asked to see things and experience things that the human brain is not prepared for?
I mean, I think it's adjacent for sure. Yeah. I just think we're not used to processing images like this in this number, with this intensity. It's all horrific and shocking.
What is your advice for people? How should they manage? I mean, this is so hard. I would never tell somebody you should ignore this for your own mental health, because I think it's too big, it's too important, it's too disastrous. We need to have a level of awareness so that we can affect change. And I don't even know if we can affect change, but maybe we can if we're aware. So how do you tell people to manage stuff like this, but also protect their own mental health in the process?
I mean, I think you've just touched upon, the real issue, which is that people feel like if they look away, that they're avoiding, and they feel like we only can look away because we have the privilege to do so. But at the same time, my thought is, if you're seeing so much and so worked up and amped up about it, then you're not going to be able to do any good. So there is, I think, a way to check in with yourself and regulate how much you can take in at one time. And I think you can start to see, I mean, each of us has a way of knowing this is too much. I'm starting to dream about this. It's invading my thoughts. I feel like
a lot about
my
losing
heart is
sleep.
racing. Yeah. So
And
that's
I've
an
lost sleep.
that's an amped up nervous system, right? You have to watch your nervous system for all the hints of, being amped up, having too much activity in it. And at that point, like, do some things to care for yourself. And some of that might be just calming activities, getting more sleep, but some of it could be pushing away for a while, so that you can regulate yourself, so you can come back in a stronger and like more capable adversary. I mean, I just don't think that we can do good work and really combat the things that we need to if our nervous system is completely dysregulated.
Yeah, one of the cycles that I've personally experienced is there was so much shock in this for me. I mean, I knew minors were being sexually abused, and that is horrific enough. But then as I got into some of the details and realized it's a billion times worse than I thought, I went through, and here's part of the problem for me, Laura, and I think a lot of our listeners and a lot of people out there, you're experiencing this in a way that's never been done before. This has never happened before. What usually happens is the investigators, the law enforcement agencies, they have to go through all this stuff, and then they put together some kind of indictment or case that they're ready to talk about in the public, and the public gets protected from a lot of the details. But the public also sees the investigators making progress, and we are consoled by that. We say, okay, justice is being served. And so we don't feel the need to dig in. In this case, a lot of what we're being exposed to with the raw evidence is juxtaposed with a decision that's being made not to pursue prosecution, not to pursue investigation. And pardon my French, but it's a complete mind fuck. And so I sit here and say, I turn on the news and they're not talking about it very much. And I hear politicians give speeches, and with rare exceptions, they're not talking about it either. And it's crushing my life. How are people ignoring this thing? And so I went through a few days period where I thought I was going crazy. Like, I thought for the first time in my life, I was questioning my own sanity. Is there like a process, like a psychological process that I've gone through? Because now I feel like my feet are under me a lot better. And I feel like...
Okay, can you describe some of the emotions you were feeling?
Oh, well, I talk about my experiences like for a living. I write and talk about them. And here's a great example. We have broached the subject on the podcast or in my writing, and I'll get something put together and I'll feel so good about it. Like, this is right where I need to be. I'm not talking about the disgusting details. I'm not doing things that are not appropriate for me and my role. But I'll put something together and I'll get it ready to publish. And then I'll kind of get away from it for a little while. And I'll go to, I coach soccer, right? So I'll go to a soccer game and I'll have dinner with the kids, and maybe I'll watch a movie on the weekend or whatever. And I'll go, oh my God, am I making more of this than it is? I mean, here I am living my normal life. I must be losing my mind, because sometimes I go into this pocket where the sky is literally falling. And then other times, I'm freaking watching a comedy movie with the family, eating pizza. Like, I can't process those two things, and I'm getting better. But there was like I said, 3 or 4 day period where I thought I was literally losing my mind.
And I'm guessing the reason you felt like you were almost literally losing your mind was that the way that you felt as you were in it was so different than the way you felt when you were living your life, that when you got back in it, it felt like you were almost a different person.
Yeah, when I'm in it, I feel like I'm on the right side of justice and that the thing I'm doing is important. And then when I'm not in it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a fucking conspiracy theorist and I'm going to get checked into the loony bin.
And are you somebody who thinks, I mean, I think your nervous system is probably pretty amped up, but are you somebody who thinks when you're amped up in like kind of black and white terms?
Black and white terms. I don't know. Help me, Sherry.
Mm-hmm. I think yes. I think that you have been a person throughout a lot of your life where in addiction, or when you're amped up, or you feel like you are on the right side, that there is just a black and
there's
white.
A right and
there's a right and a wrong.
Okay.
And I will say, I am going to counter that you said when you were watching a movie with the kids, like, you were not able to watch that movie with us.
Oh yeah, for a little while I couldn't come all the way down.
Yeah,
right.
Like there was a night where we were watching a movie and I would look over and you were like on your phone listening to and watching something else, or you could not concentrate, or you got up and you left because like there was a sexual reference or something that and you were just like, I can't handle this. Not like we watch a bunch of crazy sexual weird things with the teen boys.
Very like to torment our 19-year-old, but every movie's got to have like
sex
one
scenes.
Sex scene, so he can be totally
like all but I remember like you weren't able just to kind of sit and put it out of your mind. There was like 2 nights where you could not get it out of your brain.
And I know from interactions with the people that are engaging to the level I'm engaging, that what Sherry just described, what we're talking about, this is really common right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So if you had to say when you were feeling the most intensity, where were you on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being the highest intensity, 0 being nothing?
Like when I'm in it and working on it and thinking about it,
yeah.
I'm a 10.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never felt like this in my life. These atrocities are things that happened back in the Stone Ages. Like, I know humans are capable, but this doesn't happen anymore. Oh my God, it happens. It still happens. Like off the chart, unbelievable for me.
And now, where do you say you are now?
Oh, 1 to 10, you saying?
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm still cruising at like a 7, but I don't feel insane anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe because I've
I
heard
mean,
enough other people validate my experience. Could that be part of it?
well, I think it's time also. And I think you had said that you're a little worried about desensitization because you've been in
Mm-hmm.
it. And then when you come back into it, it all kind of like blows up again. It feels very intense again. I mean, I, I think our thinking changes when we have a high emotional reaction. And everything that you're talking about is like right in line with, okay, I have an acronym for this kind of thinking which is FUSE, FUSE, and it's fixated, urgent, simple, and by that I mean kind of black and white thinking, and extreme. And I think you were probably doing a lot of that thinking, and it was making you feel a little nuts when you were outside of it and trying to live your normal life and trying to just be a dad and a husband. And and then you probably felt a bit of like maybe guilt even and betrayal
Yes.
Mhm.
For
because
having
you
a normal life. Yeah,
because
exactly.
because you were hard on yourself, right? For not fighting the fight every single second of your day.
Well, and I think it makes it even a little bit more prolific in your feelings right now because you're taught that so much of this is about, you know, vulnerable girls, but just teens and young girls. And right now you're coaching this age group that you're seeing pictures of. So I feel like there's
Well,
this
I'm not, yeah, I'm knowing of the existence
knowing
of
of
the
the existence.
pictures. I'm
Yeah.
not looking
Okay.
at the
Yeah,
picture.
you're not, yeah, looking at
I
the
can't.
pictures, but
That's too much
but
for me.
knowing of the pictures, the description of the pictures, and then you look at your team and you're like, oh my God. Like, so I feel like it was a little bit like amped up, like you felt like you should be doing more, or like there's like a level of vengeance or something. Not that you're a violent person, but there has to be this reckoning that has to happen to make you feel like you have done everything you could to protect the people that were unprotected.
Yeah.
I always felt like that's kind of how you've been a little bit as part of your personality, like this righteous and justice kind of seeking person. But then I think it's just even a little bit more amplified because you're aware of the situation and then you're working with these teens soccer girls, and it just makes it feel so much more like guilt that happened to other people. And I think you're wearing it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
And I'm not
and
saying
my
I'm
own
like
kids too.
disassociated.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, just, yeah, kids in general. But you're right. Interacting with them on a regular basis makes it, yeah, that plays in.
And I just want to give you permission to be a normal person because I think what you're experiencing is your nervous system is amped up, you feel fried all the time. And when you feel fried, and I'm just guessing this from your perspective because I know that you can be anxious, like your thoughts are like this, zooming around your
Mm-hmm.
head. It's just a very like frenetic feeling. And really we can't take good action from that position. It's like we're trying to um I don't have a good analogy for that, but it's just not really possible. You have to set your feet, you have to feel it in your heart, you have to go from there. And so I think you have that urgency of feeling I need to act and I need to do it now, and if I can get the word out and if I can, all the things that you know that you can do. But really, like, that's not the place to act from. You got to get yourself down 5 or under, 5 or under. You still
Mm.
feel the unfairness, the disgust, the inhumaneness of it so acutely, but not at a 10 out of 10 where your nervous system is just frenetic and fried. How do
Yeah.
you feel as I say that?
I think you're right. I mean, it's so funny. Do you know the name Gabor Mate?
Yeah.
So one of his specialties, he has many. He's one of his specialties is addiction. So I watch pretty much every video he's ever put out. And he has such a calmness to him when he's talking about dramatic things. And I find that to be so effective because I'm like, oh my God, he is so like a part of this world and he has so much experience in it that he doesn't even get worked up when he's explaining really dramatic things. And I just find it so effective. So the idea of being below a 5, not only for my own mental health, but also as a communicator. Like sometimes you watch a video and someone's losing their shit and you're like, yeah, we should, a lot of the sign-offs from these independent journalists and people who are covering the Epstein files, a lot of their sign-ups are you're not angry enough. That's how they'll end like a video or a document release or whatever. And so I think that has its place, but I also think the really calm person who's talking with their head on their shoulders, I think that's really effective too. And I think I'm stuck somewhere in between, like half frenetic, but also logical, and probably not getting my message across very well because I'm clearly, activated. So anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a credit to you that you're as activated as you are. I mean, it's clear that this is, affected you deeply. And all you're saying right now is that you want to be part of the solution.
And what's hard about this moment in history is I go back and forth between complete hopelessness. Like this thing is so broken that there's no fixing it. And let's just hunker down and live our lives and ignore it. I go back and forth between that and the action that is going to be required is so dramatic. It's like nothing. It's like, and the thing that's in my head right now, I'm not even going to say out loud because it's too dramatic and I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on right now. But like it's so, and this is me as a 7. You should have seen me as a 10, Lara.
I know. Wow. You
poor
probably had all
Sherry,
kinds
right?
of thoughts.
Poor Sherry.
Oh, but
Poor-
I mean, it's a shocking, horrible thing. And you're right, we're not mad enough. But the thing is, like, the anger needs to be smoldering and hot and steady because it's not a marathon. And I mean, I'm sorry, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
That's right. That's
And
right.
we'll burn ourselves up if we're at a 7 or a 10.
One thing that helped me this week, one thing that helped me feel sanity is figuring out for myself. Now, this is me speaking for myself, what I think the first step needs to be. And talk about my insecurity before when I was saying, I'm not a therapist, I don't act like one. My other piece of insecurity is that I don't want my communication around the subject to sound political or around policy because it's just not. I mean, somebody can question me or doubt me, or I just got a comment on a video today that was like, were you this amped up when Biden was president? And my answer was very calmly, no, I wasn't, but I wasn't because I didn't know what was going on. It wasn't because I loved Biden. It was because I just didn't know. And now I know. And so you're saying I can't act now that I know because a certain person's. So to me, this is very much not a political or policy thing. But at the same time, I think the first action, I'm not asking you to weigh in on this. I think the first action is impeach and remove of the executive. And I get so much solace from having a first step to the plan. And again, I'm not asking you to react to what the plan is, but the fact that I've got something solid instead of, my God, we got to blow the whole thing up. It feels so much better. And it's something solid that I think could really happen. That's important to me. Does that make sense to you?
And it has some things that you can do.
Yes,
to help instigate that. And I think that particularly those of us who get anxious and spun up in our heads, if there's something we can actually do, if there's an action we can take, it's always better to act than not act.
Yeah.
Because both of those are choices, right? I mean, it's acting in some way, but acting is always better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking this part through. I think there are a lot of listeners that got to this part and they're like, oh my God, is this guy talking about this again? And I get that. There's a lot of people that aren't there yet. There are also, I think, an increasing number of people that relate to the way and what I've been going through because I've been hearing from those people. So I know it's a thing out there. And I really appreciate your feedback and your helping talk through this. I want to put a resource out there for our listeners. And it's a safe resource from a mental health standpoint. Amanda Doyle from the We Can Do Hard Things podcast did a 2-part series, and she gave the timeline to what has happened with Epstein. And she interviewed one of the lawyers who has represented 200 of the victims. And that 2-part series is so helpful to me. She doesn't talk graphic details. She doesn't do things that will spin you out and traumatize you. I mean, I shouldn't say won't traumatize you. It's difficult material, but she doesn't get into the graphic details, and it's a timeline, and it's super helpful, very professionally researched. Amanda Doyle, We Can Do Hard Things podcast. So I want to recommend that to listeners. Lara, thank you so much for being here. And, I appreciate you recording our personal therapy session for me. It was really, really helpful. I want to encourage our listeners to check out Lara's many resources. Places we can point you are to her LaraHammockTherapy.com website. It's HAMMOCK, Lara, LARA. Should have done that in the reverse order. Anyway, LaraHammockTherapy.com. On socials, she is the illustrating therapist. But most excitedly, the thing we most want to point people toward is Lara's new YouTube channel, at The Illustrating Therapist on YouTube. Check out what she's got going on. Subscribe. Her content is great. And as she said, Lara is very visual. And so a visual platform is a good place to get to know Lara more. And of course, while you're thinking of it, we ask you to send a question for our next quarterly episode of Ask Lara. Please send your question to matt@soberandunashamed.com with Ask Lara in the subject line. Lara, thank you so much for another wonderful episode. This was great.
Thank you guys for having me.
Listener, did you hear something today that is valuable to you? Please support Stigma, the 501c3 organization that brings you the Untoxicated podcast. We know you're listening on your phone. Why not open that Venmo app and send a fully tax-deductible donation to @Matt-Salis with the last 41412? $10 is great. That's @Matt-SALIS, last 41412, or go to supportuntoxicated.org. That's supportuntoxicated.org to make a credit card donation. And while you've got your phone open, please go to untoxicatedsurvey.org to click radio buttons and help us learn what you've been through. Thank you for listening to the Untoxicated podcast. You've got this, and we've got you.